Thank you for attending our webinar. We know there have been a million with Beacon and the rebate model coming out and all of that. So we've still been getting questions in. So you're like, you know what, let's just host our own, some of our most frequently asked questions. And I do want to point out there was supposed to be a Q&A box on this. We had it when we tested it. For some reason, it's not there, but we will be sending out after the webinar for you. If you have additional questions, a form you can submit if you have additional questions. So we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully we won't take up the full hour because I know everybody's busy. But I'll introduce myself. I'm Lindsay Martin, the VP of Consulting here at RxTrail. I've been consulting with RxTrail for about 6.5 years. Prior to that, I was a 340B coordinator for about 9 years. And so been in the 340B space world to see all the good, the bad, the ugly. So I'm excited to host this webinar and hopefully shed some light on things that maybe you haven't learned yet. And we've learned as we've helped our customers out. So with me today is Bailey Hall, one of our other consultants. She has a medical nursing background and she kind of heads up our compliance and regulation, and also is one of our, only just knows all the things Beacon too. So I'm glad she's on for anything that I missed today as well. So we will jump right into kind of the agenda. We're going to just go over the basic, what is the rebate model, understand the rebate basics, the submission requirements, what are the claims validations going to look like, and then your payment and tracking. And then we have a few questions that were submitted during registration. So we'll kind of jump on to those questions if we haven't already addressed them in the slides, and then talk about kind of some solutions or options that you have there. So Bailey, would you like to kick off what is the Beacon rebate model?
Yes, I will get us started here with just kind of the basics and kind of in general, what is the 340B rebate model. So as I'm sure most of you on here know, HRSA has approved a 340B rebate model pilot on 10 selected drugs. All of the approved manufacturers have chosen to implement this through the Beacon platform. So this model will shift the 340B discount from an upfront or a point of sale discount to rather a post-purchase rebate. So this is kind of the general flow of how this process will work. So the covered entity will make a WAC purchase of the drug. I do want to point out on that this will still occur on your 340B account. It will just be at the WAC price rather than the 340B price. Then you will dispense and qualify the drug as 340B like usual. You will submit claims data to Beacon. Beacon will validate the data and will submit a rebate request to the manufacturer. And then the covered entity will receive a rebate payment from the manufacturer for the difference between the WAC price and the 340B price. So we'll get into more details on all of these parts of the process, but that's just kind of an overview of the rebate model.
Okay, great. How is the 340B rebate calculated? So if you don't know, we had put out, and we can probably share that in a recap as well, a little 3 to 4 minute video of just the cash flow in general, like where we are now, where we're moving to, and we go in depth about that whole process. I do want to point out the rebate is going to be based on the difference between your WAC and 340B on the day that the drug is dispensed. That's what they're going to calculate that off of. So just looking at these images that we put together, obviously these numbers are made up. So this is just an example, the WAC being 700, 340B being 50, and then the MFP price being the $300. So currently you can see in the first box, you're purchasing the drug at that $50, and you're basically getting the amount back from the the pharmacy at the $700 to end up netting the $575 with their contract pharmacy dispense fee of $75. If you look at the future commercial payer side, there's not much that's changing aside from, yes, the purchase is happening up front, but the amount that the CE is making will still be the same. But I will point out that it's probably important. Some of the WAC prices are lowering. So what you may be receiving this year from a prescription won't necessarily be the same amount. Now they haven't published what they're reducing them to, but that's something to take into consideration. But you will recoup fully that price. So if you look at the Med D payers, this is where you're going to be seeing, a little bit of the sting, because the MFP price is going to lower kind of what's being reimbursed to the pharmacy. And if there is a rebate paid, a 340B rebate paid, then there's no MFP rebate that's going to go to the pharmacy. They have said that if the MFP price ever comes in lower than the 340B price, which at this point there isn't, but if so, then whatever that difference is will also go to the pharmacy. But at this point, 340B rebate is what's paid first and foremost, and then the pharmacy. So if you look at I like to just throw in the non-340B drugs for if we do have anyone that has a pharmacy. If there's non-340B claims, just kind of showing the split of the total collected from your Med D payer, and then you will get the difference from that manufacturer payment of the $400. So just to show that as an example for anyone that has a pharmacy. Okay, are the rebates paid per package or per dispense? So they will be paid per dispense. You don't have to wait until you've dispensed a whole package to submit your claim, which I would recommend not doing that. They are going to pay it as a percentage of the package. So if you have bought a 90 tablet bottle and you dispense 30 tablets, you're going to submit that claim and they are going to pay you a third of the WAC minus 340B times the units you dispensed. So you will get a percentage of that package. Hopefully that makes sense, but obviously we'll be able to answer more questions about that too. Bailey, you want to jump into this one?
Yes. So what is the difference between Beacon MFP and Beacon Rebate Model platforms, and do I need to register for both? So Beacon has created two completely separate platforms with similar functionality, but they serve just completely different purposes. So Beacon MFP platform is to support the Medicare MFP rebate program, or the maximum fair price rebates. So this will allow pharmacies to track the MFP rebate process, the validations, payment status, all of that stuff. And then the Beacon rebate model or rebate model portal is similar, but this will allow covered entities to submit claims and track the status of the 340B rebates. So it's a difference between the MFP rebate program and the 340B rebate program. So to answer the question, do you need to register for both? Covered entities that do not have your own entity-owned pharmacy will only need to register for the 340B rebate platform. If you are a pharmacy, or if your covered entity owns their own pharmacy and you'll be responsible for tracking the MFP rebates as well, then yes, you'd want to register for both.
Perfect.
And then I will keep going on this one too. So how often should I submit claims? So our recommendation is daily. And while this is not the requirement, we recommend submitting claims daily just to help the rebate process and validation and payment process move along as fast as possible. Daily submissions are going to help prevent backlogs. They're going to allow you to resolve errors faster. It'll keep your purchase data more aligned with your dispenses. And the faster turnaround time there gives you a much better chance of receiving the rebate before you even have to pay that wholesaler invoice for that WAC price drug. So the goal is just to help smooth the cash flow and reduce that financial strain on your entity by submitting more often and getting that rebate faster. I will point out that the required time frame for submission is 45 days from the date of dispense, similar to the current setup with ESP right now. So submitting faster and earlier also allows you more time to resolve any errors and resubmit those claims if necessary before you fall outside of that 45-day window past the dispense date. So daily is our recommendation for that. And do I need to submit both pharmacy and medical claims? So you will need to submit both if you use these drugs for 340B in both settings. So the medical claims will cover your mixed use or drugs administered in a hospital or clinic setting, where the pharmacy claims will cover all of the contract pharmacy dispenses. So some entities only participate in 340B through the contract pharmacy side. If that's the case, then you would only be submitting the pharmacy claims. The data requirements for each of these types of claims are just slightly different, which we're going to get into a little bit more in the coming slides. But overall, the general process that it'll move through for validation and rebates and that whole process is pretty much the same between medical and pharmacy.
And I wanted to just point out quickly, we put on this slide contract pharmacy dispenses. Obviously, if you have an in-house pharmacy, that's going to fall under these pharmacy claims as well. So what fields are required for submissions? Okay, so as you know, the medical claims, and there's actually been some updates in the recent what do you call it? The Beacon welcome packet. They put out a December one, and there was just a couple adjustments on there. So I want to make sure that we note that the health plan name and the health plan ID, they've changed that to where you can put none if you're not able to obtain that information or it's not recorded. So just pointing that out because I know that was something that entities had a question about, like, what if we can't gather it? What do we put there? They've added the word none. And then for the service provider ID, we want to point out, we've had that question of like, what MPI am I putting there? You definitely want that MPI to be whatever your purchase account is. So if you use the same 340B account for your hospital and your clinics and all of that, you're going to just put your hospital NPI, and you want it to match, wherever you're purchasing those drugs from, that NPI will go there. And then for the unit of measure and the HCPCS code, correct? Yes, HCPCS code and the unit of measure. So they're not required. There's no asterisk. However, one of them is required. So that was a little confusing to me and something we just learned on a previous webinar. So you don't have to have both, but you do have to have one. So just make a note of that as well. On Bailey, did you have anything else to add to the medical claims?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. For the pharmacy claims, I think the main thing to point out here was the bin. They have added, if it's a patient that's uninsured or cash pay patient, you will put in the bin with 6 nines, as you can see across there. And then the PCN can also have none if you don't have that available. So that's just important to note. Those were kind of updates that we noticed in the data fields. Do we submit the purchase data, and how is the purchase validation handled? You will not submit the purchase data, and per the HRSA guidance, the manufacturers must obtain the 340B purchase data directly from the wholesalers for the CE. So Beacon will validate your rebate claims by confirming that they match, what the manufacturer has obtained from the wholesaler. So you are not responsible for submitting any type of purchase data. How is each TPA handling the rebate model? So this is something that we wanted to just cover. While you may already know this because you have a TPA, we just wanted to point out, we've heard lots of, conflicting information and who's doing what and who's not. So a few things we've learned is, we know Walgreens, if you have Walgreens, they're at this point not participating at all. Those drugs are being excluded. There's no reports. They're hoping maybe in Q1 they will have some type of report, but we will see. And then for Well Partner, something that was brought to my attention recently was, you have to tell them if you want to opt in or opt out. You don't have the choice of submitting them on your own. They don't have a report yet. I think that will be coming as well. But if you opt in, they will do your submissions for you. If you opt out, they will exclude the drugs. So you won't have a report to submit. So definitely opt in so that they can do those submissions for you. With Macrohelix, Bailey, I know you have things to touch on there. I wanted to point out, if you have a TPA submitting for you, if they have not given you their access token, You have to have the access token put into your Beacon platform. If you have additional questions about how to do this, what to do, please reach out to us after this. But the TPA cannot submit data for you if you have not put their access token into your Beacon platform to give them the eligibility to submit for you. And then one more thing to point out, none of the TPAs are handling any of the denials or reconciliation. They're strictly doing the submissions for you. So after that, it's up to you to figure out how to handle it and watching, your Beacon platform, or I know PharmaForce is for an additional fee handling some denials and reconciliation. So just important things to know wherever you fall in this with your TPAs, to know kind of some of the ins and outs. So Bailey, did you want to point out macro? We have a large macro population of customers, so I want to make sure we get this out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are just a few extra steps you'll need to take in preparation. If you use MacroHelix, there is a couple of things that they've put out. So I just wanted to touch base on a few of those really quickly. So first of all, if you use MacroHelix for your mixed use or medical claims, they have asked covered entities to update their drug utilization files to include some additional fields that are required for the Beacon medical claim submission. So they have sent out the updated data specs to covered entities, and those are also available on their help website. So we recommend working with your IT team to get those files updated as soon as possible. Again, that's just for the mixed use side of things. For the pharmacy claims, there are a couple new settings that just went live this week in Macro that you may want to look at turning on if it applies to you. So the first one is around winners only logic. So if you have any type of winners only or profitability filters or rules in place at your contract pharmacy, there is a new setting that you can turn on to exclude those rebate NDCs from the winners only logic. Otherwise, that WAC price will be shown in MacroHelix for that drug, and it may come through and look like it's not a winner, it's not profitable because of that higher acquisition cost. So it would be filtered out and excluded from 340B because of that. So turning this setting on will prevent that from happening on the rebate NDCs only. And then the second setting is kind of a similar situation, but it is around price-based splitting. So this setting would also exclude rebate NDCs from the split sequence by price. Again, this would be because that 340B price will not be loaded in your account for those drugs. So for the rebate NDCs, it would prevent the orders from splitting to WAC just based on the price reflected on your accounts. And then the last thing that they have made available, if you choose to go this route, they've added a rule that you can apply in MacroHelix to exclude any Medicare Part D claims from these rebate drugs from qualifying 340B. Not that you have to do that. Many people aren't choosing to exclude those, but that is also an option that they've made available for you. I think that was about it on MacroHelix.
All right, perfect. I know Macro had a lot of updates. So
yeah.
Okay, what is the criteria for an approved rebate?
Yes. So I will kind of go through this list. Some of them are obviously more self-explanatory, but I'll expand on a few of these. So just starting at the top, obviously eligible product. It has to be one of those rebate NDCs. Eligible, you have to be an eligible 340B entity. The next two sections are around data. So valid data type. This would mean you're not putting a number in a text field or vice versa. And then all required data fields have to be included. Otherwise, if anything's missing, it would be rejected. Valid NPI, this goes for confirming prescriber NPI, pharmacy NPI, or the hospital NPI for those medical claims. The eligible contract pharmacy, I wanted to kind of touch on this a little bit more. Obviously, the pharmacy would have to be registered to your entity, but then it also needs to be eligible for 340B pricing in compliance with manufacturer policy. So single contract pharmacy restrictions and policies will still apply in the rebate scenario. So you will only be able to receive rebates on or at pharmacies that you have designated and eligible through ESP. So ESP and Beacon will communicate that eligibility piece. And then non-duplicate submissions. So only a single 340B rebate will be paid for any individual claim. This means that if two covered entities were to submit the same claim, Beacon will prioritize and the manufacturer will pay basically the first covered entity that submits the claim and has it pass validation. And then I'm going to jump down to the WAC purchase prior to claim submission. So we know from all the communication from Beacon and manufacturers that WAC purchase has to occur prior to claims submission. With that being said, Beacon has a long list of error codes and potential denials, and nowhere in that list does it have a specific denial code for this scenario. So we did reach out to Beacon to find out more about that, and they basically let us know that this is just still an evolving area, and kind of reiterated the fact that HRSA has said that entities, are required to make the purchase before a rebate is requested, but that they're kind of still working out how exactly that will be enforced amongst the manufacturer, wholesalers, and Beacon. So I think there eventually will be a rejection code for this exact scenario, but as of right now, there is not. So it seems that claims would not be denied initially just based on that alone. So I think that is, the rest are pretty self-explanatory, so we can move on to talking about potential denials. So as I mentioned, Beacon has a large list of potential error codes, and I won't get into each one specifically, but we kind of just wanted to go over the two different categories. So first, there will be a front-end validation process that occurs. Throughout that process, there are 45 potential error codes that could happen. These are generally all centered around data issues. So things like incorrect data type, like the number in a text field, that kind of thing, missing data, any kind of incorrect mapping or formatting issues, all kind of fall into this bucket. So it will be really important to make sure you have clean, accurate, well-mapped data when you're submitting so that you can avoid rejections just based on your data alone. The second part of it is once that claim passes the initial set of validations, it will go through the back-end validation process. So at that time, there are an additional 16 possible validation errors for pharmacy claims and 17 potential validation errors for medical claims. This set of validations is more related to like purchase matching, pharmacy eligibility, more manufacturer-driven checks. So all in all, there are obviously a lot of potential error and denial codes. So we just want to stress that it's really important to have a strong process in place for your Beacon submissions. And it's really important to have good, clean data to avoid any denials or delays in getting you your rebate payments.
Yeah, and just to add again about the daily submissions, like that's probably the biggest reason why. As you can see, there's 60 some ways that they can deny the claim or have an error. So if you are able, and they have said if you get an error during your initial submission on the front end, you can resubmit immediately. So it will say, almost immediately that it's missing this field or it's incorrect, and you can correct it and resubmit it at that same time. But that's why it's going to be important to do it daily, because if you get those denials, having time to fix it or go through whatever additional steps to getting it approved that will be needed to dispute that claim. So,
yep.
Okay. When can I expect to receive the payments? So back to kind of our first slide with the flow, we just added the kind of timestamps in here that we have gotten from Beacon. The submission to validation. So when you submit it to the claim getting validated, they said that will be no more than 24 hours. And then the manufacturer dependent part from the validation, they're going to send that to the manufacturer to produce the rebate. Could be 5 to 7 days. And then the rebate coming to you as a payment will be another 24 hours. So approximately 10 days is what we are looking at for the rebate payments. How are rebate payments delivered?
Yeah, I'll chime in here. So rebate payments will be delivered via ACH to the bank account that your organization registers in the Beacon platform. So once your account information is set up and verified, manufacturers will send rebate payments directly through that ACH connection. Beacon will show the payment status, but the funds themselves will be deposited into the account that you designate through the platform. So you'll definitely want to make sure you know which account you've used and it's the proper account, because that's how you will get paid. There will also be a payment ID that is attached to those deposits in your account for easier reconciliation, which is what I'll get into on these next slides too. So how can I track rebate payments? This image on the slide here is taken directly from Beacon. There are 2 ID numbers that I want to talk about that will help with your reconciliation. So you can have you will have a payment ID that is linked to the manufacturer payment. And then there's also a claim ID, which is unique to each individual claim or dispense. So each payment from a manufacturer will get its own payment ID. Multiple manufacturers won't ever be mixed into one payment ID. So for this example, if you look at the 2, or if you see on the screen, there's 2 different payment IDs. That's meaning in this example claims that were submitted, there were 2 different manufacturers. And then on the left side, under that payment ID, you can see that there is a few different claims listed there and from different NDCs, but those are all under the same manufacturer. So they all get the same payment ID. But each of those claims does have its own unique claim ID attached to it. So again, we have been told by Beacon that the payment ID will also be reflected in the transaction, like on your bank account side, so you can match up what you see is being paid out in Beacon versus what is actually hitting your account to help with that reconciliation process.
Okay. Thank you, Bailey. That was great. Okay, so we have a few questions that were also submitted. This one was, if we have 10 plus sites on OPACE, but 4 active on ESP, do we have to register every site or just the 4?
Yeah, I can touch on this. So I'm not sure if this is from a hospital type entity or grantee, but I'll kind of answer both, I think. So for hospital covered entities, you will only need to register the main parent ID. Grantees do have to register each individual associated site or 340B ID in Beacon. So you'll be able to manage all of them in the same account, but the registration process will be separate for each individual ID. You should go ahead and register all of your sites, but the priority should be, any sites that you're going to be submitting claims for. A lot of times grantees only submit under their main site ID, but that's not necessarily always the case. And from our experience with ESP, we know that the 340B ID that is on your wholesaler account is how the purchases will come across to ESP and now to Beacon. So the ID that's on your 340B ID that's on your wholesaler account needs to match the claims that you're submitting. Otherwise, the purchases and dispenses won't match and your rebates could be denied. So all of that to say, for grantees, yes, I would go ahead and register all of your sites. Prioritize your main ID and any sites that you'll submit for. And then I would just double check the 340B ID associated with your wholesaler accounts and make sure that matches to your claims data that you're going to be submitting.
Amazing. That was a great explanation.
Thanks.
Oops, for some reason it's not moving. There we go. Oh, did I miss? Okay. Is the eligible entity health center required to pay for the medication up front? I feel we addressed this in the slides, but if not, yes, you are. But again, it goes back to if you can get your submissions in early, right after the dispense, daily, hopefully you're going to have that rebate back prior to having to pay the invoice, so you won't feel the upfront cost would be the hope for everybody. Will submission be manual with Beacon? So yes and no. I mean, you are responsible for your submissions. You can submit them within the Beacon platform if your TPA has a report developed for you. Some TPAs have the capability to do the submissions on your behalf. So it kind of just depends where you're at with your TPAs and what systems you have. Now, obviously, if you don't use a TPA, you might have to have a report developed through your system, and that would be a manual process as well. Hopefully I'm addressing that question. If not, please follow up with me. Okay, please explain more on reconciliation of payments. I think Bailey did a really good job of this. So please, if you have additional questions about that, but with the payment ID and the claim ID and tracking all of that, there will be reports we've been told in Beacon that will also help with tying back the payments to the claims and the rebates. Obviously, there's no data in Beacon yet, so we can't confirm that, but that is what is in there right now. How should I track this process? So I do just want to point out that obviously RxTrail, we are consultants. We're kind of just day in and day out. Okay, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to track it? So we do have our platform that we've developed for this whole rebate model. We are doing submissions for most of our customers. We're going to track, the disputes, the errors. We'll be managing all of that for them and give them a solid report each month that has everything that they need to know, where everything stands, the percent of packages that have been paid, the rebates that have paid out, what disputes we're currently working on for them. So I do want to address that as well. Obviously, if you have more questions, I know this has been a very complicated process for everyone involved, and I feel like the timeline was way too short for everybody to get prepared for this. So we are here to help in any way, shape, or form that we can. I do think that Krissa added something. If there are questions that you want to submit now, I'm not sure how to get to it. So let's see.
Yeah, 1 second. I think.
Oh, are you doing it? Okay.
I think so. So,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay, perfect. So if you want to use that QR code, and then obviously we'll send it out as well, but we can wait a couple minutes. Obviously it's only 2:33. So if you guys have additional questions you want us to cover right now, I think that will take you to the form and you can go ahead and send it, and then Krista can get it to us. So we'll wait a couple minutes, but if you do have to go, we are so grateful that you guys hopped on, and hopefully this was a couple things that you hadn't heard before on the other webinars, but please reach out if you need anything additional from us, and we'll stay on just a few minutes to see if any additional questions come up. Let's see. Oh, thank you for the hands. I don't know who sent the clapping hands. Let's see. Questions. Let me see if I can open this. Okay.
Looks like we've maybe got a few coming in.
Should you wait until claims are sold before uploading to Beacon? So my recommendation would be yes. I would wait until that script has been sold, only because the last thing you want to do is request a rebate and you get the rebate back and then that patient never picked up their prescription. So yes, I would say waiting until it has been picked up would be ideal. If you have something in place for being able to track that prior to the submission, that would definitely be ideal. Let's see. Will you do submissions for my in-house pharmacy too if I don't have a TPA? Yes, absolutely. So we are currently doing in-house pharmacy submissions for, like if you have Liberty or QS1 or Pioneer RX, we are developing the reports with them so that we are able to submit straight to Beacon for those customers as well.
Yeah, I think there was another one that came through that's similar. If you have a small entity owned retail not using a TPA, what is the best process for submitting to Beacon?
Yeah, so similar. It would be obviously I don't know what system you use, but we are developing the reports for whatever system you do use. So we can definitely help you with that if you want to reach out. And we can, let's see, definitely address that for you. Can you explain why a lot of pharmacies are blocking MFP for Medicare payers? I mean, my take would be one, the reimbursement. is less from my understanding. Now, I'm not the pro at the pharmacy side for that. And they want to receive that rebate and not know. I think there's cash flow. From what I've heard from other pharmacies, it's cash flow issues of not knowing if they're going to get a rebate or if the entity's going to get a rebate. And so not knowing where they stand, they just don't want to have to mess with it, basically. Bailey, I don't know if you have anything to add to
I
that.
think that, yeah, like you said, just want to just work off of the MFP rebate and not have to worry about the overlap with 340B. Will they get a rebate? Will they not? So yes, cash flow mostly, and kind of the unknown of who's getting the rebate essentially.
Another question. There are many downfalls to waiting for it to be sold, especially for contract pharmacies. How will you know if it is sold? And that, yes, that is, I would say, one of the biggest areas that that's why I said if you have a way to know it's sold, that would be ideal. But that could definitely pose some problems as far as if you can't get that information from your contract pharmacy on, a sold report or anything like that. I'm hoping that will be something that will be in the works, because scripts that are, dispensed and not sold, that's also going to create an issue too with people's rebates and their balances.
Yeah.
So totally agree. I'm with you on that. I don't think a good way to do it. If you're able to see sold scripts, especially obviously if you have an in-house, then yes, that would be the way to go.
Yeah. On that, if you do have to submit reversals, obviously it complicates the process, but it's basically you submit the data the same way with a negative quantity instead. And Beacon has said that if you submit a reversal and a rebate's already been paid, it basically kind of acts as like a credit on your account for the next time you request a rebate for that NDC. So just to note too, they won't be taking money back for reversals, but rather it'll be more of a credit on your account for future rebate requests.
Yeah. Okay. Would you recommend sold or filled date for the date of service field? So this, I'm going to say it's going to be your dispensed date. Most of the TPAs, that's how it's going to be built too, is it's never going to be the sold date. It's going to be the date that it was filled and billed. So I would definitely just populate that dispense date.
Yep.
Anything else? I'm glad that Carissa, you were able to come up with this form and get that in there. That's so helpful.
Yep, that's all I'm seeing in there right now. But like Lindsay mentioned, you can still use this form, put your questions in, and we can always address those.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. We'll give you 20 minutes back of your day, and hopefully we didn't keep you too long. And you guys have a great holiday season. And please let us know if you need anything at all from us. We would love to help you. So have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, guys.